Hi, I'm Sam.
Hi, I'm Ketti.
And we are the Lotus in Life. Wow, love that name, Lotus in Life.
Thank you.
It's very catchy. And I understand you chose it for our series of videos that we're going to be running every so often. So, Ketti, Lotus in Life, what do you actually mean by that?
Well, Sam, Lotus is short for the Lotus Sutra, which is the heart of all of the sutras. And SGI's Buddhism in Action for Peace says that the sutra's key message is that Buddhahood, the supreme state of life characterized by boundless compassion, wisdom and courage, is inherent within every person, regardless of distinction, gender, ethnicity, social standing, or intellectual ability. And why I chose this name is because we, as practitioners of this religion, embody this in our daily lives.
Oh, fantastic. And yeah, well said, well said. I also think that the lotus is the lotus flower. And the lotus flower blooms in a mud swamp. And the muddier the mud swamp, the more beautiful the lotus. And this relates to our life. The deeper the problems that we have, the more opportunity that we have to overcome these problems through our practice. So Ketti, as you know, everything in life has a purpose.
Yes.
So could you explain for the listeners what are the purpose of these videos?
Well, when creating these videos, I had to really think, why did I want to make this? So the purpose of these videos is to encourage people, especially during these times of hardship and uncertainty. But also it provides a place where we can revisit fundamental Buddhist concepts and ideas of the practice that refreshes people's memories in a way that's easily digestible and relatable to daily life. But also it's a way of all of us learning from each other.
Well said. And as we know, Ketti, that this Buddhist practice, the Soka Gakkai that we're all a part of, is made up of members of people.
Yeah.
And you and I are both members of this organization. So I think it's only fitting that we give a little bit of a background about ourselves, about who we are. Would you agree?
I agree. I think it is time that we do a little introduction. So Sam, can you tell me who introduced you to this practice?
A gentleman by the name of Paul Beck. This was back in 1983 when I first heard about this practice. You see, my brother David was receiving his Gohonzon.
Wow, funny you should say that. I just wanted to point out to all the people who are new to the practice or just want to hear some new information. Faith in Action by Daisaku Ikeda says that the Gohonzon is the clearest of all mirrors, which reflects the entire universe exactly as it is. When you chant to the Gohonzon, you can perceive the true entity of your life and can tap the inexhaustible life force of Buddhahood. And that's why we have those enshrinement parties, and it's such a momentous occasion for the person receiving it.
That's right. But unfortunately, Ketti, at the time, I was not only not practicing, I was also in a very, very bad way. You see, I was gambling very heavily at that time. And I was sitting apart from all the people that were at the enshrinement. And I remember after the enshrinement, I remember this guy Paul coming up to me and saying, "Hey, why aren't you with everybody else? Why aren't you part of this?" And I said, "Well, Paul, I actually live here, but I have no choice. I've got to be here." So he said, what's happened? What's wrong? I said, "Well, I've been gambling." He said, "Oh, that's interesting. I used to gamble." And at that point, I realized I had a friend. And I talked to him that night, probably for about 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Every day, he used to come to my shop where I was working at the time in the city. And at 12 o'clock, that was the time where I'd take all the money that I'd taken that morning, I'd go to the TAB and have a bet because I was gambling. And he knew this because every day at 12 o'clock, he'd say, "Come on, we're going for a coffee." So I'd go with Paul and we'd sit in this cafe and we'd talk Buddhism. We'd talk about the fundamentals, which is what we're going to be discussing with you over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciated as time went on with Paul was his sincerity.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember you told me that he's a young men's leader at that time.
Yes.
And in My Dear Friends in America by Daisaku Ikeda, he says that the most important condition for leaders is sincerity. In contrast, an authoritarian air will only serve to alienate people, and intelligence alone may not produce anything of lasting value. Sincerity is what touches people's hearts, forges bonds of trust, and imparts a sense of security. People with sincerity create a relaxed, almost spring-like atmosphere around themselves. And this isn't just a one-off. I find that all the members that I meet have this sincerity and this aura around them, and I can see that that's what attracted you to this religion as well.
Absolutely, Ketti. So much so that after probably about 3 months, because it took him some time, I went with him to our centre, the ACC. And in those days, it was actually in Arncliffe. Does any of the older people remember Arncliffe? Anyway, I remember kneeling, because we weren't sitting on chairs in that time. We were kneeling on the floor. And I remember sitting and I remember chanting for an hour and a half.
Wow, that's long.
It's a long time for someone that never practiced.
Exactly.
And again, I went there because of the sincerity of Paul Beck. I stopped gambling from that day for 12 months. But as we know, karma, which is your life state, your life condition, can run very deep. It actually took me 17 years to stop gambling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that you spoke of one of the benefits, but how else has the practice helped you, Sam?
Oh, Ketti, in so many ways. As I say, I've been practicing now for 37 years, so I've had so many benefits. But the main way it helps me is it keeps me grounded. It helps me make decisions. It helps me know the right time and the right place to take action. And I've had 3 incredible benefits in this practice. The first one was in 1983, when I first started to practice. I started to speed up, and I remember going with the group, the SGI group, to Japan for the Third World Peace Culture Festival.
Wow.
Yeah. And while I was there, this karma came out of my life, and I became bipolar. And I ended up coming back to Australia very, very sick with this bipolar disease. And I've ended up going to the hospital. And it was the encouragement of all the members, as well as Paul and other people, that really encouraged me every day and got me chanting and learning the other practice of Gongyo, which we'll be talking about in later videos.
Yeah.
It's part of the practice that we do. And with this sincerity and caring, I was able to get out of the hospital and rebuild my life. And I'm very happy to say that 37 years later, I've never had another episode of this mania. So I've completely eradicated it from my life. The other thing was that I stopped gambling. That was my second benefit. And I haven't had a bet now for 17 years. And the third one, and this I never ever thought would happen, was I got married. You see, the longest relationship I've ever had up to this point was 2 years. I've been married now for 19 years.
Wow.
And we're in love now as much now as we were when we first met. I'm very fortunate to have this lady in my life. So she is another huge benefit. Now, as I said before, many, many, many reasons have happened for me to continue to practice this Buddhism. There are 3 benefits. But the other benefits, and again we'll be talking about this at a later stage, is the inconspicuous ones, and they're the growth ones. They're the ones that when we're doing our human revolution, which is another concept we'll be talking about down the track. But a human revolution is basically the idea of growth, of overcoming negativity and becoming stronger and happier, more compassionate, more wise, more courageous. So that's why I keep practicing.
That's very amazing, Sam. I'm very inspired by your story.
Thank you, Ketti. Now, your turn. How long have you been practicing?
Well, I actually have been practicing for about 3 or 4 years, but I'm a fortune baby. So what that is when you are born and your parents practice this Buddhism. So I've had this fortune around my life and this religion always present around me. It's been a source of comfort for me. So when I would be scared of the dark as a child, I'd chant and it would help me just get through that and feel safe. And later on, when I was struggling with school and I needed to sit down and focus, my mum would say, just go sit down and chant, and it made me feel better.
Good. Fantastic. Oh, that's so good. How has the practice actually helped you, Ketti?
Well, as Sam said, there's so many benefits to this practice. So one of the benefits when I started out, which blew my mind, was that I applied for this job with no expectations, and then I got the job as a shelver at the library, and out of 100 or more people that applied, I was one of 6 that got the job, and I still work there to this day, and the conditions and the workplace environment is amazing, and I felt very fortunate for that. But as you said, there's also inconspicuous benefits that are in this religion as well.
That is incredible, that benefit that you had, Ketti. And I'd just like to read something from Faith into Action regarding benefit by Daisaku Ikeda, where he says, there are 2 kinds of benefit that derive from faith in the Gohonzon, conspicuous and inconspicuous. Conspicuous benefit is the obvious visible benefit of being protected or being quickly able to surmount a problem when it arises, be it an illness or a conflict in personal relationships. Inconspicuous benefit is good fortune accumulated slowly but steadily, like the growth of a tree or the rising of the tide, which results in the forging of a rich and expansive state of life. We might not discern any change from day to day, but as the years pass, it will be clear that we've become happy, that we've grown as individuals, which is something you've definitely done and keep doing in your practice, Ketti.
Thank you, Sam. That is so true, that although there's a lot of conspicuous benefits and you get some things that you chant for, another thing is that anytime you practice, you receive benefit, because each day you're polishing that mirror and growing as a person and developing. And one of the inconspicuous benefits that I have is just a wisdom that comes with this practice. And I remember there was a time where I was stuck in a bad workplace environment and I wanted to leave, but I'm a very passive person and I didn't know how I was going to stand up for myself.
I can relate to that.
And I remember asking the members and everyone said, just chant, just have faith that everything will be okay. And I did that. I would chant for like a month every day, and with the determination that I would have the strength to stand up for myself. And when the time came, I was like astounded that I actually did it. And I said that I wanted to leave, and even though my boss tried to ask me to stay, tried to suggest all these alternate options, I said no, I want to leave. Thank you for your time. And that's one of the strongest proofs of the power of chanting that I've had.
Yeah, so chanting really, really works. I mean, you gave a great example then of how it worked in your life.
It does.
And once again, in Faith into Action, Daisaku Ikeda says regarding chanting, He says, everything becomes a source of value. Everything is brought to life when we base ourselves on Daimoku, which is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. The Daishonin teaches that Myo in Nam-myoho Renge Kyo means to revive, to return to life. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo rejuvenates all knowledge. It revitalizes our daily lives.
That is so beautiful, Sam. And once again, I cannot emphasize enough the power of this chanting. Even when I feel nervous and I chant, I feel so much better, and it's just hard to say how it impacts us. I know it would impact everyone all differently, and these are just our experiences to share.
So, everybody out there, this is our first video, and
we'd like to thank you for listening, and thank you for Sam for the dialogue today.
And thank you, Ketti, for the dialogue today. And so we'll be conducting these dialogues every so often. So please look out on YouTube for them. And for now, I'm Sam.
I'm Ketti.
We are the Lotus in Life.
See ya.